A question has been put forward on the comment section by Lightning Spirit 2166 as about 43 minutes ago. Says war against who? Because I was talking about the possibility of the move towards defence spending in the UK, in Germany, and in France. And I think there's no clear answer about who presents the biggest threat at the moment. Of course, there is a possibility that Russia presents a threat, or rather, Putin. We have to be very clear that we're talking about Putin's Kremlin rather than the vast area that is Russia. Because Putin, for example, doesn't really need Donbass. I know there are people who say that Putin wants the heartland of the Donbass region because of its industrial background. Well, it isn't necessary. If you look across the huge expanse of Russia, Russia has got plenty of space. Putin wants something because he wants something. There's no there's no other real reason. In the same way as Putin, when he stole his first million, wanted to ask around and say, well, how do I spend it? Come on, tell me, because he doesn't know. All he knows is acquisition. So, the short answer is there are three possibilities. One is a Russian-centered escalation that spills beyond Ukraine. Two is a South Asia flashpoint where AI-amped misinformation thickens the fog of crisis. And three is an AI-enabled disruption that speeds decision cycles, scrambles early warnings, and trips nuclear command judgment. So, to go into this in a bit more detail, Russia still has the appetite and the tools to create sharp shocks far from the front line, with sabotage, deniable attacks on infrastructure, long-range strikes, and Ukraine's June operation shows why the Kremlin may feel compelled to answer with asymmetry. In Operation Spiderweb, Kyiv used more than 100 drones to hit Russian long-range bomber bases deep inside Russia, damaging or destroying multiple aircraft, according to open sources and satellite analysis. And that was proof of concept for an autonomous and semi-autonomous swarm of drones degrading a larger power's strike arm. The strategic embarrassment invites retaliation in other domains. Add the Middle East variable. Israeli strikes on Ukrainian facilities in June were followed by US strikes on Isfahan, Natanz, and Fordo. And the IAEA still lacks full access to assess the damage. This remains a live fuse that could pull in outside actors and markets at speed. So my take is that there's a medium-high likelihood of a Russian origin shock, a medium-high impact for Europe, and we should look at cable and pipeline interference, cyber physical attacks that flirt with attribution thresholds, and tit-for-tat strikes outside declared war zones. The May crisis in South Asia previewed something new. Crises now unfold under an avalanche of false content. Broadcasters and officials amplify fakes, including deep fakes and recycled war footage. And while rumours of coups and downed jets pinged around social feeds and even bled into studio scripts, it is conceivable that this is exactly the mix that could corrode deterrence logic in a nuclear situation. Again, my take here is that there's a lower base rate than the Russian theatre for the UK, but when South Asia flares and problems escalate, the risk is heavy, and the specific accelerant here is AI-driven misperception. As for a problem, a singularity, whatever you want to call it, the AI threat itself, what is real, what is hype, what actually bites. Public fear is not new, and a British Science Association survey found 60% of people surveyed expected AI to cut jobs within 10 years, and 36% thought AI could threaten humanity in the long term. And that was 2016, but the mood music has only grown darker since. Two things can be true at once. Yes, AI raises the temperature of nuclear risk. Leading scientists warned this summer that AI plus misinformation can speed early warning timelines and magnify misreads between nuclear states. Faster sensors plus brittle models can push humans towards hair-trigger choices. And yes, AI risk is easy to oversell. because serious analysts warn against premature securitization of AI in cyberspace. We talked ourselves into a daily cyber war long before evidence justified it, and that distorted policy. The lesson is to prefer concrete scenarios over grandiose doom loops. And the more subtle danger, I think, is AI in command support, not rogue robots. Erica Harper at the ICRC flags 3 hinge points. AI shifting the calculus to start wars, AI easing the act of killing in contact, as for example with drones, and AI making it harder to end wars because the human arts of compromise and face-saving do not fit the model of AI processing. That is sobering, and it is testable. So what actually could go wrong? So the compression of decision-making time. Machines shorten the sensor to the shooter loop. Leaders then face choices with less human contact, especially if models optimize tactical advantage rather than strategic stability. AI-generated fakes can corrupt the shared picture during a crisis, so the mislabeled reality becomes something that needs to be factored into the decision-making. We saw that in South Asia. Next time it could collide with nuclear alerting. And more AI gives you more reach, but also more brittle dependencies on computation, data, and communication. And that can make first strike logic more tempting, and then the dynamic of that moving towards that process is worrying. So the Bletchley Declaration, this is the Rishi Sunak conference, called for a diplomatic tent for AI safety, including military use for use of conversations, but it is principles rather than enforcement, and therefore it's useful but not sufficient. As far as the UK is concerned, viral posts about mass fatality tents have spooked people, and the record shows that Home Office have simply renewed a long-standing contingency framework for temporary mortuary capacity. That's grim, but it's normal resilience planning, not a proof of a secret mobilization. The fact that it's happening in France and that Germany is doing parallel defense spending is concerning, but not necessarily worrying. A simple risk map for the next 18 months, the Russia origins shock, the South Asia misfire, and the AI accelerated miscalculation. All of those are possible things that need to be considered. There are practical steps that we can take to ensure that we don't fall into a war by mistake, by making sure there's a human in the loop where it matters. We need to codify AI as a support tool that doesn't necessarily decide on the use of force or nuclear posture, and we need to publish that as a doctrine. We need to extend decodification lines to include model outputs and alerting anomalies with real-time auditing. We need to we need to have regulators and editors who can adopt faster checks for synthetic media during crises, borrowing from the South Asia case studies. And we need to stress test power, cloud dependency, satellite dependency for command systems, so decision makers know where AI fails and where it is noisy and where it is blind. And we need to use forums spun out of Bletchley to publish red lines on autonomous weapons and to share incident reports, not just communications, not just communiques. So the question of war against whom, in order of likelihood, for a serious event touching British interests, Russia would be first, a South Asian misstep would be second, and a fast-moving AI miscalculation would be third. The AI technology is not necessarily our destiny, and a bad AI technology is not necessarily our destiny. Fear gets clicks, discipline gets peace. The new job is to enmesh AI with humanity and to keep humans in the loop where judgment, mercy, and restraint matter most, and where creativity matters. I've spent a lot of time in the last few years looking at AI development in picture generation. I'm not convinced it's there, and where it is there, It still needs human creativity and human direction to produce something which is worth seeing. When you see AI generated videos on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, they are the result of many iterations, and you just see the tip of the iceberg. You just see one out of 200 attempts, the one attempt that works. But that one attempt that works is good. In my experience, AI image systems don't do hands very well, and there's a lot of other glitches that don't work. But it's getting there, and and it's simply another tool to add to our paint set.